In recent months, news about the next Spider-Man movie has been all over the place. Not a day goes by without a leak contradicting the one from the day before. It's become complete chaos. And to make matters worse, with the delay of the Avengers movies, the whole machine has stalled. As a result, the audience is losing interest. And with the return of the sunshine, I totally get it. Yes, I see in my stats that you prefer the pool or family barbecues over watching Marvel videos. Honestly, you're right. I myself had sworn not to make any more videos about Spider-Man until we had something concrete. But it seems that we finally have a common thread. By cross-referencing official information and credible leaks, a real pattern is starting to emerge. And I'll say it without hesitation. Brand New Day could very well be an absolutely crazy movie. From Hulk to Punisher, including a gang war in New York after Daredevil, Born Again Season 2, Spidey could plunge us into one of the wildest stories in the entire Marvel universe. So I decided to take you along with this theory. We'll start with the production troubles, trace everything back to the latest official announcements, and imagine what this project could really look like. And given what I'm about to reveal in this video, we're obviously entering the spoiler zone, the danger zone. You're with Kevin Buckott, your favorite gangster's favorite theorist. Roll the intro. The huge mess, Brand New Day. As I mentioned in the intro, this Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland is a film apart. It's the last franchise that Marvel continues to share with another studio. And not just any studio, Sony. And when I say not just any studio, it's because Sony has already proven to us that sometimes they bite off more than they can chew. Spider-Man is clearly the jewel of the studio. And No Way Home remains to this day the biggest success in their history with $2 billion at the box office, which partly explains why this fourth installment is so complicated to produce. Since No Way Home's 2021 release, the project has faced script issues, direction problems, and approval delays, with rumors of a backstage conflict between Sony, Marvel, and Tom Holland. Three parties with very different visions and interests. Tom himself actually took an 18-month break after his last Marvel movie. He needed a real break and refused to restart discussions until he had real creative influence on the project. He wants a more mature, more adult Peter, who is definitely moving on from the teenage Spidey. And he ended up getting what he wanted. Reportedly, a contract for 6 projects with a seat at the producer's table. 3 solo movies and 3 appearances in MCU projects. Likely Doomsday, Secret Wars, and an unknown project. Even if Tom's situation is resolved, the studio's tug of war goes on. Marvel wants to bring Spider-Man back to street-level stories. A New York hero dealing with local crimes, more human, closer to the people, less galactic or multiversal. But on their side, Sony doesn't see it the same way, since they're doing everything they can to recreate the success of No Way Home by bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. 2 billion, guys. 2 freaking billion. They're playing the fan service card again, so months pass without progress. Meanwhile, the Sony Spider-Man universe is in free fall. Failures keep piling up, the losses are massive, and the studio ends up completely abandoning the villain spin-offs. And that's when the dynamic changes. In fall 2024, Tom Holland announces news that reignites excitement. He says he read the script with Zendaya, and it was so incredible that they literally jumped on the bed while reading it. For him, this would be the movie that fans deserve. And at the time, a few rumors start to circulate quietly. The movie would feature Hulk and the Punisher, but nobody really believes it, except the final script is slow to arrive, months go by, and the movie gets delayed. A delay that puts Sony in a critical position. Because if we believe the rumors, they legally have until the end of 2026 to release the movie. Otherwise, the rights to Spider-Man could slip away from them. So the script is changed, rewritten, and reshaped by all parties, and they finally set a release date for July 2026. But then, there's a big problem. This schedule now puts Spider-Man 4 after the Avengers 5 movie, and that's not good for anyone. A movie that was originally supposed to be Avengers, Kang Dynasty, but eventually pivoted to become Avengers, Doomsday. And that too is something that completely shook up the plot. Because Peter absolutely has to appear in this new Avengers movie. Worse, he'll probably have a major role. But the last time we saw him in the MCU was at the end of 2024. Completely erased from everyone's memory, alone in a new suit, without Stark gadgets, and finally ready to start a new life. So seeing him again right in an Avengers movie 5 years later, with no transition at all, is possibly the worst idea possible. This 5-year gap can never be properly addressed in an already overloaded crossover film, so the movie goes back to rewrites. And this time, everyone agrees that we're going back to a multiversal movie, and now it turns into a circus of bogus rumors and unhappy fans. Everyone wants attention, everyone throws out their own version, and 3/4 of the leaks are completely fake. But all of that was before the Avengers movies were also pushed back. Marvel is making Spidey its priority. Spider-Man is the most important character in the entire Marvel universe. It's absolutely unthinkable to imagine him missing from a movie like Avengers Doomsday. First, because everyone wants to see him again in an Avengers movie, but especially because the main villain of this film will be Doctor Doom with the face of his mentor. And an interaction between Peter and this new Tony Stark would have a gigantic emotional impact. He would represent us, all of us, the viewers, shocked, confused, but also happy, almost relieved to see the face of the one we love again. The one we want to believe even if deep down we know something is wrong. But for this to work, several boxes need to be checked. That Tom Holland is available, that he agrees to join the project, because apparently that was a sticking point for a while. He doesn't want to ruin his character yet, and above all, he shouldn't show up in the film out of nowhere. At the same time, the Russo brothers are preparing what seems to be Hollywood's most ambitious film, a project announced at Comic-Con 2024 with an initial release planned for May 2026. Most of the contracts haven't been signed yet, and Tom Holland is caught in a scheduling nightmare. He's filming Odyssey with Christopher Nolan at the same time and will go straight into Spider-Man: Brand New Day. And in this context, integrating him smoothly into Doomsday becomes almost impossible. Marvel finds itself at a dead end, and then they make a radical decision: to push back the Avengers movies by 7 months. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief, especially Tom, who can now go directly from filming Spider-Man 4 to Doomsday this summer at Pinewood Studios in London. The screenwriters also have more flexibility. Without this postponement, Marvel had only two options. Either make a movie that's 100% multiverse in Battleworld, or pull the same trick as Ant-Man and the Wasp with a film that takes place before or during Doomsday, but comes out after the movie. The problem is that's super risky. We don't even know what Peter did during those 5 years he was gone in the MCU, so bringing him back just like that without a transition movie would have honestly been a real mistake. With this shift, Marvel is potentially saving two of its biggest upcoming movies, but above all, it changes everything for Spidey. Because Sony will have to give up on its dream of a multiverse with multiple Spideys, or at least push it back until Secret Wars, and Disney can go back to its original plans. The famous plans that drove Tom and Zendaya crazy. An ultra street-level Spider-Man. New York, the streets, gangs, ordinary crime. No purple portals, no variants. Just Peter in his city. Well, almost. What we know, like I was saying, these past few weeks, dozens of rumors have flooded social media about the Spider-Man 4 movie. Information that, more often than not, had absolutely nothing to do with each other. It was total chaos. So today, we're going to focus only on what we actually know. First, the official info, then reports from top insiders. Let's begin with the title. At CinemaCon 2025, Destin Daniel Cretton took the stage to present the project, and it was Tom Holland himself, in a video, who announced the title of the film, Spider-Man: Brand New Day. So this title, as you recognized, is a direct reference to the comic book arc that followed the pact between Peter and Mephisto, so that everyone would forget his identity and to save Aunt May. I've covered that in another video, so check it out if you missed it. Honestly, I think that's where the reference ends. Here, Brand New Day is mainly a fresh start for a new Spider-Man. As for the cast, we obviously have Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon. These were the very first names that were announced. But in my opinion, Peter's friends will have a very minor role. Maybe an appearance, a small cameo to ensure some kind of transition, but not much more, because this film marks the beginning of a new trilogy that's much more intimate, more mature, whereas the Home trilogy represented the transition to adolescence. This will push Peter into the tough transition to adulthood. I feel like it's going to be a film very focused on his emotions, his responsibilities, his dilemmas, even his relationship with anger or hatred. 3 new names were then added to the cast. Lisa Collins-Diaz, whose role is still unknown, but she could play an important mother figure in Peter's new life. Who knows, maybe a version of Rio Morales, Miles' mother. Next, Sadie Sink, and there have been a lot of rumors about her. Back when the film was supposed to come out after Doomsday, some people imagined her as a variant of Gwen Stacy, and therefore Spider-Gwen, myself included. Others think she could become the new MJ, but honestly, I think it's still way too soon. The strongest rumor is still about Mayday Parker, the daughter of Tobey Maguire's Peter, which would make her a multiversal character. And while the movie is supposed to be street level, it's clear the multiverse isn't entirely ruled out. Reminder, the movie releases between Fantastic Four and Doomsday, so it may impact what's next, possibly starting the final incursion. And finally, the cherry on top, Jon Bernthal joins the cast as the Punisher. Yes, the Punisher is confirmed, and 2026, my friends, will be the year of the Punisher. He's coming back in Daredevil Born Again Season 2, he'll have a dedicated special on Disney+, and he'll share an adventure with Spider-Man where Frank Castle will play a major role. Let me tell you, Peter and Frank's relationship will likely be explosive. Plus, we can add JK to the cast. Simmons in the role of J. Jonah Jameson because it's become a classic. But then what else? One of the latest and strongest rumors goes hand in hand with the return of the Punisher. Bruce Banner would also be part of it, marking the return of the Savage Hulk, the one we haven't seen since the beginning of Infinity War in 2018. An uncontrollable Hulk who would cross paths with Peter and Frank. Don't worry, we'll put all this into perspective in the theory section, but for now, let's stick to the facts. And now, you're going to ask me why. In every MCU Spider-Man movie, Peter needs a mentor. In Homecoming, it was Tony. In Far From Home, Nick Fury. And in No Way Home, Doctor Strange. Why can't we just have Spider-Man on his own? Well, it's simply because that's part of the deal between Marvel and Sony. It's mandatory for an important MCU character to appear in every Spider-Man movie. If Marvel wants Peter to stay in their shared universe, but the threats don't stop there, and that's putting it mildly. We're talking about street-level villains like Scorpion, who was already teased in the post-credits scene of Homecoming. Boomerang, a hitman affiliated with gangs. Tombstone, one of the crime bosses of New York. And Mr. Negative, the boss of the Chinese mafia with terrifying powers. He can notably alter the molecular structure of his victims and turn them into slaves under his will. But that's not all. According to several insiders, two other antagonists are planned. A man in traditional samurai armor and a woman in a techno-shinobi outfit inspired by cyberpunk. Many believe Sarah Snook, star of Succession, would play the woman. According to Alex from Cosmic Circus, these two characters could be the Silver Samurai and Viper, whom we already saw in the Wolverine. Personally, I have a hard time believing it, but after all, why not? That would explain why Japan was so eager to get their hands on the adamantium that makes up the Silver Samurai's armor and swords, which could be formidable weapons against Hulk. And yes, because let me remind you, that was the original pitch for Captain America 4, with adamantium being the only metal that can injure and poison the Hulks. Anyway, let's move on to the theory. What could this movie look like? From now on, let's have some fun and try to imagine an epic film. The movie will fill the gap between the end of No Way Home and the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts. 4 to 5 years during which a lot has happened in New York, especially with Fisk's election, who in his inauguration speech mentions Spider-Man alongside Daredevil and Punisher and implements his anti-vigilante policy.
We don't need a vigilante with a hammer on his head, or a man who dresses in a robe like some kind of animal, or a man who uses ropes to play hero for us.
Peter is keeping a low profile and trying to rebuild his life after No Way Home. He juggles between university, his odd jobs, and his role as Spider-Man, stopping criminals by listening to police frequencies. It's actually at the university that he meets Bruce Banner, who has become a professor without knowing Peter's secret identity. However, the events of Daredevil, Born Again Season 2 will plunge New York into chaos. Matt and his army are going to take down the Kingpin, triggering a real gang war to take control of the city. Gangsters are now enhanced. This begins the Gang Wars arc. In the comics, this arc follows the famous Devil's Reign. After removing Fisk from City Hall, the mafia boss Tom Tombstone is gunned down, and a real open war begins between all the gangs in the city. And I think Brian Udai could totally take inspiration from this arc, since Spider-Man decides to recruit a team of street-level heroes to restore order in the city. Here, we can imagine the city descending into chaos, and Peter being forced to take up his role again. He's more mature, more battle-hardened, and now knows Manhattan like the back of his hand. He decides to team up with Daredevil, the Punisher, and other heroes. One of them is Mayday, a new vigilante who seems to have the same powers as Peter. Peter will see Frank as an example he should definitely not follow. Meanwhile, Frank will see Peter as a pure being, a kind of hope. As I mentioned, the gangsters will be enhanced. They possess unknown technology, and after a fight against Scorpion and Boomerang, Peter decides to show this technology to Banner to learn more about it. A technology possibly linked to Stark and Adamantium that could be supplied by the Power Broker. But one enemy seems more powerful than the others, a Silver Samurai equipped with indestructible armor. During their investigation, they trace the lead back to Martin Lee. It turns out he is the leader of a powerful gang, rivaling the Tendizanos. And could even see Shang-Chi appear as a member of the Avengers alongside Banner. He would join the other heroes to fight the other gangs. Peter, Frank, and Bruce set out to confront Martin Lee. In civilian life, he is a billionaire weapons collector, and all signs point to his connection with the Silver Samurai. But one item in the collection catches our attention. It's a living black entity, the symbiote left by Venom on the bar. This is followed by a confrontation where Mr. Negative manages to catch Banner and transforms him. He then unleashes the Savage Hulk on New York City, but in a negative version, a Grey Hulk. Frank and Peter go after him, chased by Lee's men. However, during Hulk's escape, the container holding the symbiote broke and it latched onto the Punisher. During the fight against Hulk, Frank's weapons have no effect and Hulk throws him to the other end of the street. He is saved by the symbiote, which transforms him and allows him to face the Grey Colossus, freeing Banner from Negative's mind control. As they attack together, they face his Silver Samurai, an indestructible war machine. And most importantly, they discover that the warrior's adamantium blades can hurt Hulk. Worse, they weaken him. He slaughters the team until he kills Peter. Frank can't believe it. He takes him in his arms, and then the symbiote moves on to Peter, bringing him back to life. He now wears the black suit and manages to control the samurai and the island. Meanwhile, Daredevil and his army have defeated the other gangs in the city. But Peter's death left its mark. He was the anchor of his universe. However, he wasn't the only one. Since Universe 616 is the eternal time stream, it had two anchor beings, Peter and Tony. And the death of these two beings propels this universe into its first incursion. Mayday then reveals who she really is to Peter and the Avengers. She is the daughter of Toby's Peter, and her mission was to protect him to prevent the eternal time stream from collapsing as well. She failed. Now, her universe is going to die. A plot linking Spider-Man, Doomsday, and the Avengers. If you haven't watched my new video series on the problem of powerful characters in the MCU, it's here. We'll see you again soon for a totally crazy July. In the meantime, don't forget to stay curious. That's the secret to being happy.